Welcome to this special episode of the podcast. Mergers and acquisitions, something that many businesses prepare for. A great way to scale up, but is it always smooth sailing? Since 1998, Medigold Health has led the occupational health industry, consistently setting benchmarks for service excellence. Yet the past 18 months have marked an unusual period, with the company facing significant challenges, including the acquisition of a competitor and the introduction of new technological systems. These changes have tested their renowned service commitments more than ever before. Today we'll discuss openly how Medigold Health is managing these significant shifts while striving to maintain the high standards they're known for in this demanding industry.
This episode of All Things Business, the podcast, is brought to you by digital media partner DFA Law. DFA Law, providers of expert and dedicated legal advice to businesses and families since 1838. DFA Law, the law firm for life.
Alex, James, welcome to the podcast.
Morning. Thanks for having us.
Thank you. You're here today to talk openly and honestly about mergers and acquisitions, something that is keen interest to me. But Alex, I've followed your journey in recent years as Medigold Health has employed not just lots of people in Northamptonshire, but across the country. Yeah. So, Alex, first of all, just tell us about Medigold. Started in 1998?
Correct, yeah. Started by my father. He's a doctor. Been a big growth story. He started it with two people, literally in his living room, and then was growing it to what is now, which is just short of 72 million turnover and 1,100 people. So it's been a big growth story. But my dad will always claim all the credit.
quite rightly so as well. And James, you've been working within the business for the last sort of 12, 18 months, but your association goes a bit further back with Medigold.
Yeah, that's right. So I first came across Medigold back in 2017. So my previous role, I actually worked for Medigold's private equity investor. So I led the investment for BGF, the investment firm, into Medigold back in 2017. Sat on the board as a non-exec director until 2022. Kept in touch with the business after I left BGF, and then joined, actually it was back in April this year, so only a few months ago.
Does that happen quite a lot with investors effectively going to work for companies that they've invested in? Is that unusual?
That's unusual.
Yeah, it's unusual. Yeah. I mean, I suppose you could ask, why did I do it?
That was going to be the next one. Yeah,
yeah, and I think, for me, I've invested in about 25 businesses over my career so far, all different shapes and sizes, some small, some big, but all of them have grown, most of them through acquisition. But Medigold's one of those businesses where actually it makes a real difference, and I think from a kind of macro environment right now, what's interesting to me is working with people I want to work with, but B, working for a business that can really make a difference to its customers. And frankly, the health and well-being of employees, is top of the agenda, or should be top of the agenda for every business, not just in the UK, but globally.
Very much so. So Alex, 18 months ago, you acquired HML. What were the initial goals of that acquisition, and what were the realities that you faced in the first few months? Yeah,
so acquisitions normally come about through opportunity, desire to grow, desire to add new products, desire to swallow up a competitor, and all of that in this case was true. But actually, the main driver for me wanting to purchase HML was my firm belief that the delivery of occupational health going forward is going to become ever more challenging, and resource is going to become ever more scarce. And so the main driver for me doing it was to sort of protect Medigold and its customers from the future and from what's coming, because we've all been crying out for people to take occupational health and well-being in the workplace more seriously, and they're now doing that. But I think it's fair to say the industry and the infrastructure of the industry wasn't prepared for that sudden surge in demand. So I wanted to safeguard and protect, our future.
Because I must admit, I've only ever associated occupational health with really large organisations, and it's probably been since the pandemic that we ourselves, just as a small employer, we're 25, 26 people, we've probably had approaches from maybe 3 or 4 companies that claim to offer occupational health for businesses of our size, whereas that certainly wasn't the case maybe 6-7 years ago. Do you think it's almost occupational health has almost created a bit of an industry for other businesses that perhaps aren't delivering it as well as they should be?
I mean, there's no doubt that the reason why occupational health historically was a large business provision is just education and awareness. Large businesses knew about it, needed it. Occupational health saves money, and large businesses want to save money. Smaller businesses didn't have that information and didn't have necessarily the stark need for it back in the day. But now everyone realizes that actually, no matter how big or small your company, you can, if you have good occupational health, it can really...
The people are the most important part of any business. It doesn't matter what size or sector you are. Yeah. James, you're obviously the CFO. From a financial perspective, what have the implications had on Medigold since the acquisition?
Well, I think any acquisition, has different challenges attached to it, but ultimately there's an opportunity. That's why we bought the business. But actually with HML, Medigold nearly doubled in size overnight. So actually that's a big transformational acquisition for the business. So that brings lots of challenges around integration of systems, integration of people, just processes. Different businesses do things in different ways, as you know. And actually that just takes time and resource to actually streamline that, work out what's right. Are they doing something better or are we doing something better? And bringing all that together, certainly from a systems point of view, takes time, takes money as well.
If you also look at what's happened in this country, well, not just the UK, but also internationally over the last 18 months, we've been through quite a lot. It seems like it's been like that since the pandemic as well. What sort of effect have those national and international challenges and events have gone on? What impact has that had on the business?
Yeah, I mean, anyone that's run a business of any size or description in the last 2 years or 3 years since the pandemic actually will tell you that it's been the hardest time in their career to run a company. I sit on other forums with other CEOs who all say, 21 to 24 has been incredibly challenging. And that's after a pandemic when we all thought, that's as bad as it can possibly get. And then it kind of, gets more challenging. I mean, for me, I know that we're talking about mergers and acquisitions and that's the sort of the main driver of this. But actually, I'd like to sort of bring out a bit more of, because actually, with all the best of intentions, we went into this acquisition and all this change with the best of intentions to safeguard our customers and the experience they had. The honest truth is that we've had it's been harder than that, and it's almost in a way we've almost achieved the opposite in some ways, in that customers have come on the journey with us, luckily, but they found just as challenging as we have to get through the last 2 years. And that is a lot to do with macro things, the economy, the work environment, the talent drain that the UK is and the world is seeing, the desire for people to have more flexible work. So I almost want to, in this acquisition, it's been, it's almost, customers will be, if you ask my customer now, how's the acquisition been? A lot of them will be like, wow, it's been a bit of a challenge. And
obviously, I know very little about occupational health, but would I be right in thinking the NHS, I think I'm going to generalise now, but the NHS is a wonderful organisation in terms of the people that work within it. And I think I'm talking from the heart here, having had to utilise it significantly in recent years for my own father. We react to emergencies incredibly well, but strategically we don't, because departments don't talk to one another. And having seen it firsthand, I think that's probably down to a lack of resource. And if you read the national press, we're massively understaffed across the NHS. Is it the same within occupational health?
Yeah.
Because it's the same talent that you're recruiting, right?
Absolutely. I mean, you read the papers, there is a dramatic shortage in occupational health for clinicians. There is an aging workforce. It needs more structure at university level to train people and bring people into the industry.
And just on clinicians, just roughly as a percentage, what would they represent of your workforce? Just roughly.
Medigold's roughly 40% of our workforce is clinicians.
Really, as much as 40%? Wow.
People doing clinical work to some
degree. Yeah. Wow, significant. Medigold Core, just talk me through the decision-making process around implementing that. That's a new platform, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, alongside doing an acquisition, this is what I was hinting at just now regarding challenges for us and for customers. when James quite rightly just talked about integration of systems, one of the things that became very apparent is that the systems being used by the business we bought were outdated and not, fit for purpose for the future. They're okay just about for now, but they're not going to be okay for next year, year after that. So you have to move them onto new systems. And we had a new system being built, which was Medigold Core, that we probably had to rush forward a little bit, which anyone developing systems will tell you is fraught with pitfalls. But in order to be able to get these people onto that system to safeguard the future of their data, the future of their experience, we did that, and it's been successful. But to say it hasn't had some bumps in the road and caused enormous challenges. I mean, James, the backlog of work processing, you've come in fresh and since April and sort of seen, I guess, with the best of intentions, we're doing these changes, but sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes things don't go to plan, candidly, and I think any change breeds uncertainty, and uncertainty isn't great for customers. It's not great for employees. It's not great for anyone. But ultimately, any system change, you do it for the right reasons, and there's going to be bumps in the road, but as long as you get through those, and I think that's what, coming in cold, there's lots of things I see around the business where it's not that the business hasn't been doing things in the right way, but actually we could be more efficient. We could look at systems, we could look at people and process of ways people are doing things. So there's huge opportunity, but right now, there's definitely been, candidly, a period of indigestion. Which we're starting to deal with and address.
I think the biggest challenge as well has been we've had tiers of indigestion. So we had the acquisition, then we had some system changes, and every time we told the customers we were coming out of a problem, there seemed to be another one that would come over the hill. And that's really what I've learned in the last couple of years. Because as a leader, you don't want to come across as you're telling your customers the wrong thing. So I'm always have been honest and upfront, and I don't mind sharing very transparently good and bad news. So when we had the problems with the backlog caused by the acquisition and by the talent drain, I went and spoke to the customers and told them when I felt things were back to normal. But then because of other problems happening, we weren't back to normal. So customers quite rightly say to me, well, you said we're back to normal now, and now we're not. So every time you then say, oh, it'll be X, Y, Z, it becomes less easy for them to understand.
So this last 18 months has, by the sounds of it, it's been a bit of a roller coaster, yeah?
Yeah, for sure.
How knowing you, James, I don't know you as well as Alex, but knowing you like I do, how's it affected you personally? Because I know you're full on, you're a workaholic.
Yeah.
What impact's had on you?
Well, look, I mean, I hate disappointing people. That's like since I was a kid, I don't like getting things wrong or.
Well, Medigold's your baby, and
exactly.
It's now market leader, employing over 1,000 people, yeah?
Yeah, and we have managed, despite all these challenges, to maintain that, which is testament to the people in the business, and not testament to me, it's testament to the phenomenal people. Because whilst I talk about the customers and their experience, my people have been working under enormous pressure in an environment that I put them into with the best of intentions. The irony is, many businesses that experience some of the problems that we've experienced, delays, phones not being answered, reports not going out, people assume it's because they're badly run or they're not making the right decisions. Ironically, all these things have been caused in our case by me deliberately making decisions for the future and to safeguard people's futures and to improve services going forward in this ever-changing world. And so how it's affected me is I'm incredibly frustrated because I'm receiving very valid criticism on a daily basis, often from people, from customers, from my staff sometimes, about the decisions I'm making, and they're all quite right to ask. I guess I just have to stay very steadfast in my belief that I've done all these things for the right reason, and I can see for sure right now the improvements they're making. And companies like Medigold that have been going for 26 years and want to be here for 50 years have to occasionally make brave decisions which don't just get fixed in 2 or 3 months, but they know that you can see that it's going to stand us in great stead going towards 2030. So I'm proud of myself that we've done that. But yeah, it's been tough on occasions.
And I think as well, I can just jump in, that with the business, the size of the business that we bought and the size Medigold already was, actually bringing things together is always going to be more challenging. You can do diligence up front, which was absolutely done. But there's always nuances that come out of that. And a couple of examples in our case whereby key systems that business runs on actually we were locked into contracts for another 12 months. So in an ideal world, we would have come out of those straight away, put them straight onto Core, the system that the business has been developing at Medigold, but actually we can't. So you're running two systems. So from a customer point of view, you've got different experiences in different parts of the business, which clearly isn't great. So the fog is clearing, and actually that will come together over the next few months.
How challenging was the period of taking on the team from HML and embedding them into the culture within Medigold? Because I struggled to comprehend the numbers around that, because we're talking about hundreds of people here.
Yeah. I mean, luckily, I've got some experience in doing it before, so I've learned the hard way. First acquisition I did, major one, the business wasn't doing very well, that we bought. And I walked into a room of sort of 80 people and told them how lucky they all were that they were now joining a proper business that knew what it was doing. And you can imagine the reaction. It was sort of... So, you learn from your mistakes. So, these days, I just go and tell the truth. When I'm buying a business, I speak to people from the heart. I tell them what we're trying to do. I tell them the reason we're trying to do it. I say my door is always open. If they've got any worries, to ask me. They've got a great team around them to speak to. And I also try and bring them on the journey. And I tell them all that I want to understand their experiences. I want to understand what they think good occupational health looks like. I don't just want to tell them what we think it looks like. Yeah. So we're quite inclusive. And the other thing to say, to be fair, is that the acquisition was actually welcomed by a lot of the guys, because whilst they were happy with the people that they owned them before, it's fair to say that occupational health wasn't a core focus for that owner, who we get on perfectly well with, and it's all good. But it's all very understood between us that actually they sold it to us partly because we do have a real focus on occupational health, and they didn't. So the guys that were coming in knew they were going to a home that really championed and was passionate about doing this. And that kind of links to what I've just talked about, which is why they're already keen to come with me on the journey still now, even despite the last 18 months worth of hard work, to deliver a better standard of service to the UK's workforce. And they're all on the same page on that.
James, if I may, from a CFO's perspective, I think every acquisition comes with opportunity, but also risk as well. Just, I know you touched on before about the financial impact that it had, but that was almost like within the first few months. As we're 18 months post-acquisition now, the future financially for Medigold?
The future is really exciting. I mean, obviously I've only been here 4 or 5 months now, but actually the opportunity still exists from a synergy point of view. When you're bolting two businesses together, you've got duplicate costs, for example. Actually, if we can combine the systems that we've already talked about, we can remove some of those duplicate costs. So actually, we've got really supportive investors in Medigold. We've got a great business, a great team now. So the opportunity to really drive the financial performance of the business over the next 12, 18, 24 months is really strong. And we'll continue to do that by looking at all parts of the business from an efficiency point of view. Where can we invest as well? It's not all about taking cost out. This is about investing to improve the customer experience, to improve the employee experience, and ultimately create a really strong business for many years to come.
No, that's right. I think James is being quite modest as well in that, or quite, maybe not modest, wrong word, but he's being quite diplomatic. I mean, we've had to spend a vast amount of money in the last 18 months on systems, changing processes, changing teams around, adding vans to the fleet, trying to improve the diary systems, phones. I'll come to that in a second. And that's probably more than we budgeted for. That creates pressure. And we have to somehow shield all the team from that pressure. And that's James and my job. And we do that. But when customers have been frustrated with some of the delivery in the last 12 months, and I absolutely understand why, I can also reassure them that no one's been pedaling harder under the surface and spending more money to fix these things than Medigold has.
Tell me about the phones.
Yeah, so it's my biggest bugbear, and it drives me mad, but it's the most damaging thing. So in short, it's about answering phones from customers. And when you've got an old system and an old way of working and you do an acquisition, certain things have to change. And one of the things we changed was how we answered the phones. And about a year ago, it resulted in us inadvertently sort of collapsing the whole system, and customers that were ringing up with frustration anyway because they couldn't get occupational health reports on time wanted to ask where the report was, and he couldn't even get the phone answered, which we all know what that's like. I mean, if I ring,
the phone was just ringing and
yeah,
ringing.
just ringing and ringing. And that's just, as a customer, we all know as customers in the B2C sector, you try and ring, whoever it is, Vodafone or whatever.
Chinese on a Saturday night.
I'm not saying, sorry, for full transparency, not just Vodafone, O2, Orange, whoever your mobile phone provider might be, to talk about it. When they don't answer or you're in a queue, that's annoying.
Yeah.
We did that to our customers. And, that is kind of...
But not intentionally.
No, of course not intentionally.
Yeah.
And once we knew we'd done it, we fixed it.
So we've talked about customers. What is the customer journey like at Medigold Health? Talk me through it.
Well, we've obviously got a number of different products. So it depends on which healthcare product or service we're delivering. The sort of biggest product we offer, and the one that's actually causing us the most headache in terms of delivery, is where we're having customers send employees to our doctors and nurses to be seen for sickness or absence issues, where we see them and we produce a report back to the employer and to the employee on how best to move forward. That's actually the largest, in our industry it's called management referrals, but it's the largest thing we do. And that journey is effectively, there's an online form that customers complete, employees also complete a consent form. We then receive the work, it gets triaged into either to the appropriate clinician. An appointment is booked with that clinician. The clinician will see the person, will produce a report, and then that will be dispatched back to the customer and to the employee through some really good tech that's finally working. And this is where I talked earlier about investment and long-term. I don't know if James has got anything.
Yeah, and on that point, it is really key, because actually the investment that's been made will improve efficiency in the business, throughput in the business, improve that customer experience, and really set the business up going forwards as well. So, I think any business that isn't embracing technology, is going to fall behind. And for Medigold, there's always that balance of our absolute aim is always to maintain clinical quality. That's what we're about. That's what our reputation's built on. But actually enhancing that through the use of technology, and whether it's AI or whatever it is, that's really important to us, isn't it?
100%. I mean, I know I can't speak for our competition, but I know what we're doing. You have an idea of what competition are doing. And I think we've taken a pretty avant-garde approach to this. And actually, right now, it's almost been to our detriment, because it's taken real fortitude, and some of the time frames have been delayed. When I've told customers previously things are going to be better by a certain date, they haven't been. But actually now, finally, we're seeing that needle move, and it's like turning an ocean liner around, but we are seeing it move. And actually the product's better. It gets to when it's all working well, clinicians can see more people. The way that means we can reduce waiting times. The way the reports are produced is smarter, using really clever tech, so there's less admin for the clinician to do. That's market leading. It's just taken a lot of patience and fortitude to get there. And I want to thank actually the customers that have stuck with us, because there has been a few false dawns here, but it's now really bearing fruit. And I'm proud of the team for sticking with us and delivering it. I guess from my point of view, customers that have known us for a long time, and we've got some that go back 20 years, know that Medigold's a good business. All the nice things you said at the beginning, Medigold is and was a good business. But at the end of the day, you are only as good as your last game, right?
You've always had a strong brand, very reputable, credible, lots of success stories.
As they say, Ben, a brand arrives on foot and leaves on horseback, and the reality is, right, that's where we were in danger, because whilst there's good reasons for these changes, and I can explain all the delays, eventually a customer, quite rightly, is just going to go, well, that's great, but if we're not getting what we need, and it all goes somewhere else, and that's happened to us. But actually, it's an industry problem. A lot of these macro things going on, other providers have had similar problems. I think the difference is other providers have, I think, dealt with things on a more short-term basis. Use temps, bring in different types of clinicians, change the sort of clinician that are doing the work. One thing I'm so proud of with Medigold is we've never compromised on the quality of the clinical reports we produce. And we were under huge pressure to do that at one point, because, there are, you could use a less qualified occupational physician, for instance, to get more in. We didn't do that. We just took the long-term view that the technology would work, and it is now working.
So from a scalability perspective, actually this investment and the pain that you've gone through is going to benefit you and your customers for
100%.
Yeah. And clinicians themselves as well from a excuse me, from a working balance perspective, reducing the admin time. If you're a clinician, you want to support people, you want to help people. Actually, we want them to be able to focus on that and not focus on necessarily a lot of admin that comes with that. So we can use technology to support that, but always strike that right balance.
That's right, James. Doctors and nurses didn't go to medical school to type.
Yeah.
Exactly. They went to medical school to see people.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing that's hurt me, when I read complaints from customers, I come pretty thick-skinned. But when they write things like, "You are damaging the health of our staff because you can't see people fast enough," that's fair enough. But that's the thing. When you ask me, how does it affect me? I agree with them, and I don't. That's the worst possible thing we could be doing. So, but I also have stayed. I could have backed out of the plan. I could have given up on the second. The easy route would have been to say, "I'll just go back to what we did before, fix the problems." But that would have fixed it for 5 minutes, not 5 years. And that's what we're trying to do. The last thing just to say, and I want to say this if there will be people watching this, is that I sort of hinted at earlier, but we've got customers that know we're a good business. We've also got customers that only joined in the last 18 months. They will have seen a business going through a lot of upheaval. They'll have seen some good things, and they'll have seen some good medical reports, and they will have definitely seen high standard of clinical delivery. But they'll have seen delays, they'll have seen phones not being answered, they'll have seen delays to reports being issued, they'll have seen not being able to get hold of their customer service advisor in the time frame they'd like. And that, I just want to apologise to them. I want to apologise to them, in person, really, because they don't know the Medigold that we all know. But I can promise them this: they will do. I will reward loyalty and reward patience by delivering a service that no one else can deliver. And I think we're on the verge of that now.
Incredibly honest, really, really good. So I must admit, I wasn't expecting it to be as honest as what you two have spoken to me about today. So thank you for that. Because in business, I think it's one of those, how are things? And it doesn't matter where you are. You could be at a social event, you could be at a business event. Nobody ever gives you a negative, really, do they? And what you guys have sat down with to me today, you've really sort of shared all. So thank you for that.
Yeah. I mean, I always work on the basis people deal with people. Yeah. And ultimately, it's easy to see a business as a business, but actually there's people running that business. And I think doing things like this just shows that actually we are people and we want to do the best for other people, i.e. our customers and our staff.
Yeah, and you care.
Massively so. I mean, James is right. I'm very proud of the people in our business. I tell them a lot. And actually, I feel responsible. I placed them in this position of, stress, right? That's what it's been. You can't deliver amazing service and future-proof your business if it was easy. That, especially with all the challenges you mentioned, macroeconomic stuff. So most of my people get that. The ones, people have left. In the last 18 months, we've had not just customers, decide that they wanted to try other things, but people have wanted to decide on, and that's fine. But the ones that have stayed, fortitude, resilience, I couldn't be prouder. And, I just want to sort of finish with, I do care about this business and about the customers in it and about the people in it. It's immensely personal. It's a family company. Sometimes customers ask to speak to me and they get the CEO. They don't get a customer service director. They don't get someone who's going to say all the time what they want to hear. They get someone saying what they need to hear. And I make no apology for being abundantly honest about everything. If anyone ever wants to speak to me, I'm always there. I'm happy. I think podcasts like this, where a bit of mea culpa, we're not perfect. The world isn't perfect. What I want people to see from this is that we have a genuine desire to do the right thing. And we've absolutely gone into this with the best of intentions. Has it gone the way that I envisaged? No. Will it come out with the outcome that I hoped for? I think better. And that's the test of time that will show that. But I'm much more confident now. Now I can see the green shoots of everything happening. That's going to happen. So onwards and upwards. You learn nothing from easy times. You see your athletes talk. They learn. You've just had the Olympics. They don't learn anything from success. The British pole vaulter who was in tears on TV, who we all felt for, right?
Yeah.
She will be a better pole vaulter because of that, not because if she'd have come first or second, she wouldn't learn anything. I very much view that Medigold's in that position, and I've done this now for 19 years. I've learned a lot from things that have gone wrong very little from things that have gone well. So you've got to embrace the cactus. You know what I mean? You've got to kind of look at the really embrace the times that are difficult, learn from them, understand them, take actual. And this is where I'm going with the people in the business. I think the people in the business do take real pride, and I think they take a lot of self-worth from getting through a really hard time, coming out the other side, which we are now doing, and you can see the fruit of your labour. If everything was easy, then there's not much pleasure in that, in my view. I would like it to be a bit easier, though.
Gents, thank you once again, because I've learnt a lot from this, and I hope our audience has too. And we should do this again maybe in 6 months' time and have a catch up of how it's all progressing.
Yeah, thanks, Ben. We'd love that. Welcome that, and hopefully, we can talk to you about all the good things that have happened since.
Yeah,
great.
Brilliant.
Thanks for your time.
you.
Appreciate it.